Imagine for a second that you are part of one of the most promising rock bands in all of Europe. You are at the peak of your youth. $1 million contracts are on the table, and you are about to record the album that will finally take you to global stardom in the United States. But suddenly, on a cold afternoon in the studio, the worst happens. Your singer opens his mouth and nothing comes out. Klaus Meine, the golden voice of Germany, lost his voice completely. He was operated on twice, and the best specialists in Vienna told him to find another profession, that his career was over. Klaus, sunk in depression, asked the band to find another vocalist so as not to slow down their ascent. But the Scorpions refused. They waited for their friend. Today, we are going to learn the story of No One Like You, the song that was born from the absolute fear of losing everything and that ended up turning some boys from Hanover into the kings of world rock. To understand the gravity of this tragedy, we have to travel to West Germany in 1981. The rock world was changing at breakneck speed. Punk was starting to lose ground, and a new wave of heavy metal and hard rock was beginning to brew, with bands filling stadiums and selling millions of copies. In that context, Scorpions wasn't just any band. They were an anomaly. They were Germans trying to conquer the Anglo-Saxon market, something that, historically, was almost impossible due to the still open wounds of World War II and the language barrier. But they were achieving it based on hard work, Prussian discipline, and a melodic talent that had no borders. They had been chipping away at the stone for years. They had gone from playing in humid, small clubs in Hanover, loading their own amplifiers into rickety vans, to being the opening act for huge rock monsters. Rudolf Schenker, the rhythm guitarist and founder, had a clear business vision. He wanted Scorpions to be the biggest band on the planet. And Klaus Meine, with his characteristic beret and that nasal, powerful, and crystalline voice, was the perfect vehicle for that ambition. But the machine, which seemed indestructible, was about to seize up in the most painful way possible. It all started during the previous tour and worsened upon entering the studios of famous producer Dieter Dierks in Cologne to record what would be the album Blackout. Dierks was known for being an obsessive perfectionist, a sound tyrant who could make you repeat a take 100 times until it was perfect. The pressure was immense. Klaus noticed something wasn't right. The high notes, those he used to reach with the ease of a bird, now cost him blood and sweat. His throat burned, it closed up. Until one day, in front of the microphone, he tried to sing, and only a dry, painful scratch came out. The silence that flooded the recording booth was probably the most terrifying sound they had ever heard in their lives. The medical diagnosis fell like a death sentence: severe polyps on the vocal cords and an infection that had damaged the tissue. The doctor's recommendation was brutally honest. Mr. Meine, forget about singing rock and roll. Find an office job, take care of your health, and accept reality. Imagine the psychological impact for a man whose entire identity, whose soul and way of communicating with the world, resided in his throat. Klaus felt like his spirit had been amputated. The band had the studio rented, release dates scheduled, and a considerable debt with the record label expecting a resounding success. The clock was ticking against them, and the ship's captain couldn't speak. Before delving into the surgical operation that changed rock history, I'd love to know something about you. Have you ever had to wait for a friend in a difficult moment? Or did someone wait for you? Leave me your story in the comments, because in the end, that's what this video is about: loyalty. Here is where the story gets interesting, and a character many forget comes into play: Don Dokken. While Klaus traveled to Vienna to undergo a first operation that didn't go entirely well, the band had to keep moving forward with the music. They couldn't sit idly by. Producer Dieter Dierks suggested bringing in an American singer to record the guide vocals. That is, the reference melodies, so the rest of the musicians could record their instruments. Don Dokken, a young vocalist with a very high and powerful range, flew to Germany. Dokken's presence in the studio generated a strange, though necessary, tension. Don did an excellent job, so good that some record label executives started whispering in the hallways. What if we keep this kid? He's American, he's young, he has a voice. And Klaus is broken. It was the easy way out, the logical and cold business decision. Klaus, hearing about this and plunged into a deep depression after a first surgery that didn't return his full voice, went to see Rudolf Schenker. With tears in his eyes and a hoarse voice, he told his childhood friend, "Rudolf, I can't stop the dream of your life. Find another singer, I'll step aside." It was at that exact moment where the band's destiny was defined. Rudolf Schenker, a man known for his steely determination, looked at Klaus and told him a phrase that should be written in bronze in music history. "Klaus, we are not a company, we are a band. And you are not an employee, you are my brother. We will wait for you as long as it takes. Scorpions does not exist without you." Rudolf rejected the label's pressure, rejected the idea of replacing him, and bet all his political and economic capital on a second operation. This time with a specialist in opera singers who used experimental techniques. There were months of torturous rehabilitation. Klaus had to learn to speak again, to breathe, to emit sounds as if he were a baby. The band, meanwhile, kept polishing the songs, making them more aggressive, more powerful, channeling all that frustration and fear into the instruments. Matthias Jabs, the lead guitarist, sharpened his solos until they cut the air, and the rhythm section of Francis Buchholz and Hermann Rarebell sounded like an unstoppable diesel engine. They were preparing the ground for the return of the king, not knowing if the king could ever wear the crown again. And then, the miracle happened. Klaus returned to the studio. He was nervous, pale, afraid of breaking again. He stood in front of the microphone to test his voice on a new rock ballad Rudolf had composed. The song started with a clean guitar riff, melancholic but strong, and then exploded. Klaus opened his mouth, and what came out left everyone paralyzed. His voice hadn't just returned, it had mutated. Now it had a metallic range, a sharp edge, and a power it didn't possess before. The doctors had cleaned his vocal cords in such a way that he now sounded more crystalline and aggressive than ever. The song chosen to demonstrate this rebirth was "No One Like You." The lyrics, although many think it's a simple rocker love song, have a much deeper reading in this context. "Girl, it's been a long time that we've been apart." Klaus dedicated it to his wife Gabi, who was his fundamental pillar during the Depression, the woman who held his hand when he couldn't speak. But also, unconsciously, he was singing to his own voice, to his lost and recovered instrument. Klaus's performance on this track is heart-wrenching and triumphant at the same time. You can feel the hunger of a man who has been about to die of thirst. The release of the album, Blackout, in 1982, with that iconic cover by artist Gottfried Helnwein, featuring a man with a bandaged head and forks in his eyes, a perfect metaphor for the pain and madness they lived through, was the definitive explosion. "No One Like You" instantly became the anthem of rock radio in the United States. It was the master key that opened the doors of America. It wasn't "Wind of Change," which would arrive years later. It was this song that saved them from bankruptcy and oblivion. The success was such that in 1983, they were invited to the legendary U.S. Festival in California, a technological and musical event organized by Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. Imagine the scene. 300,000 people under a scorching sun in the San Bernardino desert. It was heavy metal day. Van Halen was charging $1 million and were the stars, but Scorpions came on stage mid-afternoon and stole the show. 5 Germans running like crazy, forming human pyramids, and with a singer who, a year earlier, was mute, now screaming before a sea of people chanting, "There's no one like you!" That concert was the technological and human consecration of the band. The sound was massive, transmitted by amplification towers that were cutting edge at the time. Scorpions proved that German precision and rock passion were an explosive mix. And in the center of it all, Klaus Meine, with his scarf around his neck which he used to protect his throat from the cold and dust, sang better than on the records. The American press, which used to be cynical about European groups, had to surrender. Headlines like, "The Germans invade America," filled Rolling Stone and Cream magazines. If you are liking this story of overcoming adversity, don't forget to hit the like button. It's a small gesture for you, but for us, it's the fuel to keep telling these legends. But there is a mystical detail in Klaus's recovery that feeds the legend. It is said that after the operation, his voice gained a few semitones upwards, allowing him to reach notes that humanly seem impossible without falsetto. Fans started joking, saying they had put bionic metal vocal cords in him. The reality is that Klaus had to relearn how to sing from scratch, using his diaphragm and lyrical technique to never damage his throat again. That iron discipline, combined with natural talent, allowed him to keep his voice intact for 40 more years, something very few singers of his generation think of Brian Johnson or Robert Plant could achieve with such dignity. Many believe that Wind of Change, with its whistling and political message about the fall of the Berlin Wall, is the most important song of their career. And commercially, perhaps it is. But emotionally, No One Like You is the cornerstone upon which the building of their legend was constructed. Without that song, Scorpions would have dissolved in 1981. Rudolf would have ended up perhaps as a producer, and Klaus would have been a blurry memory in the history of German rock. No One Like You is the sound of survival, the roar of a beast that refuses to be caged by destiny. The band's private life was also strengthened after this episode. They became a real family, shielded against the egos that destroyed other bands like Guns N' Roses or Van Halen. They understood that individual success is worth nothing if you don't have your pack protecting your back. That union was reflected in subsequent tours, like the Love at First Sting tour, where they filled Madison Square Garden 3 nights in a row, an absolute record for a continental European band. To close, it is worth reflecting on how the market sometimes tries to dictate the rules of art. The executives wanted a new singer, a fresh product without factory defects. They wanted the quick and profitable solution. But Rudolf Schenker and his crew bet on the human factor, on imperfection and friendship. And that bet not only saved a man's career, but gifted us all decades of unforgettable music. Blackout is not just a heavy metal album. It is a treatise on resilience and the healing power of music. Today, when we hear that sharp opening guitar riff followed by Klaus's scream, we are not just listening to a good song from the 80s. We are listening to the triumph of will against biological adversity. We are listening to a man who defied medical science because he had something important to tell us. And boy, did he say it. His voice has accompanied first loves, painful breakups, and road trips for millions of people around the globe. This story shows us that in rock, sometimes the heart is more important than business and statistics. If the Scorpions had listened to the doctors in Vienna or the accountants at the record label, today we wouldn't have this anthem. What did you feel the first time you heard that opening riff? Is this your favorite song of theirs? Or do you prefer their later ballads like Still Loving You? Leave it in the comments. Let's remember those golden ages together. It has been an honor to guide you through this story of friendship and decibels. I'm leaving another video right here about great bands that survived tragedy. Until next time, And may rock never stop playing in your speakers.